What's up, guys? It's your boy Barca Boy 103, and welcome to another reaction video where today we're going to be reacting to a Real Madrid fan giving his review on the season that Barcelona had. We're going to be reacting to Faysal, who of course is a well-renowned Real Madrid fan, and he's been going through his brutally honest review on Barcelona's past season. And I'm going to sit here as a Barcelona fan, analyze it, say whether he's correct or not in some sort of categories, whether he's false or true, and give my thoughts and analysis on how he sees and gives his perspective on Barcelona's season. Does he give the full picture? Does he leave some important details out? And of course, I'll give you guys my opinion along the way as well. Of course, before we get into it, make sure you guys drop a like down below and subscribe to my channel down below as well if you haven't already. This is going to be an interesting one. Let's get right into it.
Anyway, let's go straight into it. The same way we're going to review this season, the same way I did with Real Madrid, it's the same way I'm going to do with
I didn't see the Madrid one, if I'm being honest.
I'm going to categorize it into different boxes and categories. The first category is the president. Has Laporta, Deco, the manager of Barcelona, put this team successful and put the right players at the right team to win trophies? Secondly, is
Alright, so the president we're going to base off the sports management if they put the right players in the right team to make this team successful. That's the criteria.
Manager, Mr. Hansi Flick. How has Hansi Flick done this season? Has he put this Barcelona team in a way to be successful? Has he made this Barcelona team compete for trophies? And has he developed and made players better around him? Then the third category is the players. Have they performed well? Have they consistently performed at the level which they should have? Has there been a collective overall balance from every single person? And then the last category is the performances. Have Barcelona played well this season? Have they scored goals? Have they entertained? Have they compete for trophies?
He says that, so depressed. But you know what? Honestly, fair play to Faysal. These are four really good and really strong categories to judge a season off. So flowers to him. So let's get into it.
Have they won trophies? And like I said to you guys, Hala Santos Laguna, man. I'm talking as a die-hard Santos Laguna fan. I've been a fan for about 17 years, bro. Christian Benitez. If you, man, you know the person who played for Birmingham about a decade ago. But listen, let's start with the first category. And that is
let's hear it.
Laporte and the management of Barcelona. Barcelona came into the season.
There's a difference between Aymeric Laporte and Joan Laporta. I hate when people call Laporte. This is a pet peeve of mine. You know, there's an E at the end of Laporte, there's an A at the end of Laporta. Not that hard to figure out.
Wanting to sign a defensive midfielder, wanting to sign a left winger, wanting to sign a striker, and wanting to sign a fullback to compete with Uber Bolde, and of course.
So let's start off right here. He gets half of this incorrect. The priority going into this summer, from the board's perspective, was to sign a left winger and a midfielder. Yes, there was no sign of signing a striker because we had Lewandowski. We also had Victor Roque at the time, and we also knew that Ferran Torres was very versatile. There was no plans, even though all the Barcelona fans wanted to sign a fullback. We were quite, happy with, especially with how well Fort did last season. We had Alex Valle. We saw how, okay and how satisfied Flick was with Gerard Martin in preseason. There was no plans to sign a fullback whatsoever. And also post preseason, there was no signs as well to sign a defensive midfielder after how well Casado and Bernal did as well. So a little bit of false information there. I would say maybe, of course, going to summer, defensive midfielder, left winger for sure, but fullback and striker was never really a reality.
Pretty much how they prioritized the last summer window. Of course, last season wasn't well with Xavi Hernandez, but you kind of knew.
I will say this in his defense, that was kind of Xavi's priority, was to get a fullback, striker, defensive midfielder, left winger. But once Flick came in, and Flick came in quite early, end of May, so way before the transfer window happened, the whole entire perspective changed. So I can see where he got that mistake from. He's trying to think of what Xavi wanted in the summer, which he is correct. When Flick came in, everything changed.
When came in, is that Barcelona had a pretty good squad. They just needed one person, two people, three players in order for them to actually compete. And they didn't really sign anyone except for one person and one person only, and that was Mr. Dani Olmo, which they spent over 60 million on it. And when you first look,
not true again. I think the total fee was 47 as the initial fee, and then plus I think 10 in variables. So the total package was about 57. You can maybe say 60 as the total, and he's saying it's 60 as the base. Again, not true there.
bit weird. I mean, listen, you need a defensive midfielder. You need a left winger. Rafinha didn't have the greatest of season last season. Lewa was deemed as finished, and Barcelona fans wanted him out at the start of this season. So Barcelona were heading into the season. Only Dani Olmo, quite interesting. But
I will just say this very quickly. He's right about only the defensive midfield part and the left wing part. I think the striker part, we all kind of accepted the fact that Lewandowski was going to be the starting striker. There's really no push from the Barcelona fans to, get something happening. And again, the board were not looking at it as well. But post preseason, we were quite happy with Casado and Bernal. Especially with we were expecting, of course, Frankie or Pedro to be playing in those pivot areas. So we're going to have both of them, of course, with Bernal getting injured and Frankie as well. Different perspective. But everything he says about the left winger is correct. But I think the other ones, he's kind of, dwelling on them a bit too much.
What led to that and what transpired is come pretty much Jan time, when they realized Ter Stegen went down with an injury, and when they realized they can't really trust Iñaki Peña, one thing they did is they adapted, they improvised, they managed to get Szczesny. So I'm only going to be judging them from the summer window to the January window. First of all, in terms of players bringing in, they only signed Dani Olmo. Secondly, the whole fiasco, the whole scandal with the registration to do with Dani Olmo, to do with Pau Victor, it pretty much comes down to them. They had a whole 6 months to register him, and bro, it led to an absolute scandal.
Where's the scandal here? We, of course, met the La Liga requirements. We registered our players. We, of course, at the time, like you mentioned, Ter Stegen was injured. So not only do we use Ter Stegen's salary space, we also use the salary space of Andreas Christensen. Now, when you use salary space in La Liga for players that are injured, those injured players can come back, but those salary spaces can still be used for those players that we registered. In terms of this being a scandal, it's not. This is, of course, someone clearly looking from the outside looking in. I mean, we followed all the rules and guidelines to perfection. Yes, we left it last second, but that's what Barcelona does. It's not really something new, especially under the tenure of Joan Laporta. They want to get the best out of the deals, and they want to stretch it all out. I believe the final registration was submitted like December 28th. Something like that. So it was, pretty late. I will give him that kind of point. But again, we've kind of been working late this whole entire time for the past 4 or 5 years. As a Barcelona fan, not really out of the norm. But there's no scandal here. We follow all the rules. We register our players in time. Bada bing, bada boom. So here again, a bit of a false narrative.
Embarrassment. So I'm putting that on them as well.
To put that on them is fair. To say it's an embarrassment, it wasn't, because in the end we came out on top, and in the end we were Joan Laporta was proven correctly that he had all the players registered in time under the correct guidelines. And to this day, we're now currently June the 3rd. Still no noise about Pau Victor and Dani Olmo since mid-January. We've had, of course, Javier Tebas submit about 5,000 fucking appeals for it in court, in different levels of court as well. Lost every single one of them.
Did they sign the right players in the right positions? No, I know what Barcelona's season led to. It comes down to the second category or the third category, which I'll be talking about. But as a
I'll give him that. Of course, we were left the window very disappointed. A player like Dani Olmo, who we all said is a fantastic player, great quality. The price was really solid as well, not too cheap, not too expensive. We all felt like we just didn't really need him. But once Gundogan left, that's where Dani Olmo really came in, because we were all saying at the time, we have Gundogan, Fermin, Pedri, Gavi, all these different players, Rafinha, Lamine, that can play the 10. Didn't really make sense. But once Gundogan went to City, and then we brought in Dani Olmo, everyone's like, okay. Everyone at first was saying, Gundogan, our best player from last season, why are you getting rid of him after one season? In the end, it was a correct move, not only on his salary as well, but also the fact that he was a Xavi signing. And Flick really didn't see him as the 10 that he wanted in the team, which made sense. So I understand his point there a little bit, that yes, in terms of that, big no, that we didn't sign, we didn't feel, very satisfied post-transfer window, but in terms of the signs that we actually made, they did, of course, it had the impact, and they did make sense.
Management, as a board, as a president, and as a sporting director in Deco, I don't think Barcelona came into this season fully prepared into every single position, because I felt like there were certain positions which they could have added reinforcement, which they didn't. And the whole
I mean, I can see what his point is there, but I think that Deco did what he could, especially being in the 1-4 rule. Not being in the 1 rule, La Liga basically has, all your hands and your legs tied behind your back, and all you have is your pinky to make some move. It's hard, and again, that's not me saying an excuse, but you have to look at that from that kind of perspective. Again, the squad was quite healthy, was quite strong. That's why Xavi was sacked, because Xavi felt like there was much more improvement needed, but Deco Laporta felt like the squad was, like you mentioned, Faysal, at the beginning, very strong, just needed maybe 1 or 2 players to be added. So he's flip-flopping here a little bit about, squad needing 1 or 2 more players. You should have made more in your reinforcements. So he's not being too consistent.
Yeah, with the registration, come on, Ak, that's an embarrassment. So from a board,
I mean, again, it's not a fiasco. It wasn't a scandal. We registered our players in time. It's La Liga who made it into a fiasco, saying, "Oh, you submitted it late." Well, we submitted it before the deadline. We had, of course, the VIP box money coming in. Everyone else made it into a fiasco, but Barcelona.
I'm gonna give Barcelona a 4 out of 10.
10. That's crazy. I think if you're judging it based on the end of the summer transfer window, I'd probably be looking at maybe a 6 or 7. But of course, now we're in June. Seeing what we've done, probably would have given it 8 or 9, especially with the renewals that we've done. How we handled the fiasco as well, coming out on top, proving everyone wrong. I think a 4 out of 10 is very, very harsh. Again, remembering the fact that we had no money last summer because we kind of used it all the summer during the economic levers. What we did was we of course brought in a player that the Flick wanted. Yes, it's only one signing. Again, it turned out to be well, which again I can kind of see what he's trying to say, that you have to kind of judge it based on that summer. I think a 4 out of 10 is very, very harsh. End of the summer, I probably would say 6 or 7, and definitely by the end of the season, you're looking at 8 or 9. I think a 4 is scandalous.
Take it to the manager and what Hansi Flick has done to Barcelona. Let's be real. When Hansi Flick came in first, I don't think anyone expected Barcelona to play the way they did early on. Because Barcelona went on a crazy form from August to September to October. That 3 months period, they won literally every single game. The only one they dropped points was Monaco in the Champions League.
And also soon as well, that 4-2 game where we forced everyone to
when
rotate.
They were man down. But other than that, Barcelona went literally gun blazing. And Hansi Flick, you could see the identity and you could see the system that he installed early on, bro. The way he made every single person better. The way he transformed positions and the way he made players go into different roles and into profiles, which they weren't doing the season before with Xavi. But now with Hansi Flick, they're doing it into another.
I mean, the only player that's really playing a different role from last season to this season is Lamine, and the only reason why he has a different role is because now he has more prominence, he has more, reliability on him. Rafinha was playing off the left in the last few months. Pedri was playing always in the 8. Frankie was kind of playing in the 8 and the 6 as well. In terms of positional sense, I don't think it was really brand new for anyone. Just became more consistent and more of like, this is your position, as opposed to, oh, we're just tinkering and trying things out. I can see his point perspective from the outside looking in, but from a Barcelona fan, really no one played a new position per se this season.
Level. The likes of Koundé, the likes of Bolde, the likes of Inigo Martinez, the likes of Kabasi, the likes of Pedri, making him into the player that he is, bringing in Marc Barnau and bringing in Casado, the likes of Lamine Yamal, giving him rest and trusting him, the likes of Rafinha, turning him into an absolute balance.
Like I said about Rafinha, I mean the trust there, but like we saw under Xavi how good these players were. I think everyone can agree that last season we were just burned out. We kind of just we're going through the emotion. We of course already knew the talent of Casado and Bernal. Xavi just preferred experience last season because we were doing so poorly. Didn't want to give youngsters those minutes. We saw how well Inigo did do last season, but he was just having so many injury issues. Did his right hamstring, then did his left hamstring. Then at that point, Araujo and Kubarsi had that center back partnership on lock. So it was a bit tough for Inigo as well. We all saw how well Inigo did, just never got a bit of a run. But I can still see his perspective.
Tension player, and then you've got Leo, who was literally firing on all cylinders early on, scoring so many goals, and he did it crazy. And then you had the period of November and December when the level went down so badly. Barcelona looked depressing, they looked miserable, and
I mean, I wouldn't say our level was depressing and went down so badly. I just think that with the injured Lamine Yamal and all the other wingers being out injured, whether it be Farhan, a makeshift winger, Ansu, we were struggling to have a lot of width. We were relying a lot on, Fermin, Pablo Torre to provide width for us, even though they're not natural wingers. Even our, B team winger, Daniel Rodriguez, who probably would have had a great run in the team, was also injured as well. Not to provide an excuse, I would say the football style of play identity was still visible, was still there. There was just no effectiveness to it, which of course comes down to individual brilliance. Like Pep says, the job of a manager is to bring the team from the defensive third into the final third, and then in the final third, it comes down to the players and their individual brilliance, their mindset. And Flick was doing that. We're of course, progressing forward. We had some good intricate plays. The football was still fine, but once we hit that final third, we relied on individual talents. It wasn't quite, sparking for us, and that's how it shows why, in my opinion, how Lamine is the most important player in this team.
start saying, well, the highlight is not working. The system has not been found out. Every team now knows how to play against Barcelona. And then straight after that, from January, they hadn't lost a single game to literally May. They won every single game. Every single game. Whether it was a Super Cup against Real Madrid, the league games, the Copa del Rey games, the Champions League games.
Sexy,
and
bro, I'm not gonna lie.
led to the last game against Inter Milan, where of course they lost. But in terms of Hansi Flick, he has improved every single person. Bro, look at Kunde and how he's performing this season. He's performing as a top 3 right back this season due to the role and position which Hansi Flick gave him. Balde, he's managed his minutes well. Balde over the past 3 years has always had injury problems due to excessive minutes played. Look.
To be fair with Balde, he kind of, was out for the entire last season, so he come to the season fully fresh, ready to go. I don't think that's on Flick too much. You can definitely say that Flick improved Balde a little bit, saying that he made Balde fit. Bit of a false narrative, because again, last season he was fully injured from I think September until like November, then played for a month, and then got injured in the Copa del Rey against Athletic Club in the round 16, and then was out for the rest of the season. So he's basically injured the whole entire last season. That's why he's been, majority fit this season. Not more so because Flick absolutely changed everything, which he still did.
He's been playing 60 minutes, 55 minutes, 70 minutes, missing the next game, getting rested, and that's what Hansi Flick has done. Inigo Martinez
has managed his minutes very well.
An actual consistent player. Because of course when Arujo came, the question marks whether it was going to be Arujo and Kubasi. Kubasi making him into a leader. Basically saying to Arujo, you don't belong in this system. You don't belong the way I want my center to play. And they put him on the bench. Frankie de
Again, Araujo was injured for the first half of the season. He came in at that point. Inigo and Kobarsi in the system and style play so well. It's so hard for Araujo to jump in here. Like, look at what you just said in that November-December period. Everyone's saying, oh, highline this, highline that. And that's where a lot of the frailties did show. But Inigo and Kobarsi both overcame that together. Whereas Araujo is learning fresh from day one in the middle of the season how to play the system. It's difficult for him. I'm not trying to, say that Araujo is not good enough or anything like that. Or not to say that, he has been poor, especially in big moments this past season. But he came in a bit, with one hand tied behind his back. It's difficult, and we were always talking about this as Barca fans in January, February time, that it's going to be hard for him. Let's look at how hard it was for Inigo and Kobarsi. Look how many goals. Despite us playing champagne football September, October, November, we still conceded quite a bit of goals. We're talking about a lot of the time that we weren't getting a run of clean sheets and stuff like that, and that comes to getting used to the system. And Araujo was unfortunately not given that time, because when he wanted to get that time, it was in the second half of the season, the most crucial moment of the season.
Bringing him back into the level which Barcelona fans was expecting Frankie de Jong from a couple of years ago. Casado, look at how he
just played Frankie in his role, right? That's all it is.
Pedri, turning him into a 10, which I never understood why Spain and Barcelona and Xavi played him into a 6. He was never going to be the Iniesta. He was always going to be the deeper role, the Sergio Busquets Xavi player, because
yeah, again, that's not too true. Pedri just plays an 8. Him and Frankie kind of both play as 8, whereas one goes forward, one stands back, vice versa. So I understand his point. I do agree with it that Pedri, to advance, you're taking away his ability deeper. I think Pedri the 10 is the weakest out of the 3, although he can still play well in the 10. But the best position for Pedri is the 8. Having that creative freedom, being the one to dictate play, find the vision, control the tempo as well, while also of course improving. I think where Flick really came in with Pedri is improving his defensive awareness and the defensive part of his game, which was little to non-existent under Xavi, even under De La Fuente and Luis Enrique in the Euros as well, when he got rinsed for the minutes under Koeman as well. But Pedri is an 8. He's not a 6. He's not a 6.
Controls games. Lamine Yamal giving him the keys and the freedom. Rafinha making him into a player. I don't need you on the wing. I don't need you as a touchline winger. I need you closer to the midfield, behind the striker, closer to the box where you can actually score goals. And then you've got Lewa basically saying to Lewa, why are you dropping deep? Under Xavi, Lewa was constantly trying to play that false 9 role. I want you inside the box.
That's a great point there from Faysal, because, first, 6 months, 8 months of the season, Lewandowski was playing as that striker, getting in the box, scoring goals. We saw over the past few months, he's been not performing that well, not getting too many goals, because he's been dropping deeper to get involved in play. That's probably just Lewandowski himself wanting to get a feel of it, and, we want to get involved, because when we're trying to, work our way at the back and, tough games, it's hard for him to be involved. So that's a great point there from Faysal. And again, he was on 99 goals for, 2-3 months, even though he was injured for about half of that. He's been on 99 goals for Barcelona from beginning of March until end of May, when he scored against Athletic Club on the final day of the season. So that's a great point there.
else, and when the ball comes to you, finish it. And that's what Leo has been doing. And then you've got the players on the bench trusting Firmino and giving him a chance. Ferran Torres, fam. This Donny went from a sardine to a shark at the second half of the season. Bro, he made every player better.
Facts.
The system was always there. Whether it was with Lamine, without Lamine, with Pedro, without Pedro.
No shit without Lamine, though.
This, that. Rafinha, Kubasi, Balde, Koundé. The system never changed. He wanted every single person to understand the system and play to the system. It wasn't the players, it was down to the system. And the system worked to perfection. The high line, the super intense pressing into the final third, directness, the quick football, progressing the ball quickly from the back line into the final third. They did it on all levels. There was a plan A, there was a plan B, there was a plan C. And you looked at it last season with Xavi, it was the exact same players. Nothing changed. But look how last season were and this season were.
Again, like I mentioned in the president section, I'll say it one more time, we did underperform a lot last season. Yes, we look much better. That's because now we're playing at our level, and I've been very consistent on this fact, and a lot of Barca fans agree with me that last season we performed. Let's say our squad should be performing average 7 out of 10 based on the quality that we do have. We performed last season at like a 3, maybe even a 4, and now this season we perform at like 8 or 9. So that's kind of, I think, more the reason than Flick working absolute magic.
System this season with an actual system. And now you looked at Barcelona this season, and bro, this season alongside PSG, they played the most entertaining football in the whole world, bro. Look at the amount of goals which they scored, number 1 across the whole Europe. More goals in La Liga, more goals in the Champions League, and even defensive, they were pretty good. Szczesny, look at how he did second half of the season. So Hansi Flick, in terms of his management, in terms of how he did this season, I'm gonna give him an absolute 9 out of 10. The reason why I'm not giving him 10 out of 10, I felt like the game against Inter Milan, that came down to his in-game management. I still don't understand how he took off Inigo Martinez, which he came out and said why, but bringing Arujo and not Christensen, nah, bro, that was...
I do agree with him there that Flick was a big factor into us losing the Inter Milan second leg. To dock up a whole point for that is quite crazy. I think Flick had a 10 out of 10. Yes, there are a few things along the way where he made some stumbles. I think a lot of the time he learned from his mistakes. The reason why Inigo came off is because Inigo had some discomfort and was also on yellow. The reason why Christensen didn't come in was because he only played against Valladolid. That was it. Playing. I think he played a little bit against what team? Mallorca. So he played 10 minutes against Mallorca, played I think an hour against Valladolid. There's no way you're gonna chuck him into a semi-final Champions League. It didn't make too much sense. I understand his point though. Looking back in hindsight, he should have done that. But at the time, remember, beginning of the Inter game, everyone was screaming for Arujo to start. Do not forget that people were saying put Arujo at right back instead of Eric Garcia, play him at center back, play a back 3. So it wasn't that crazy. Of course, Arujo coming in, making the mistakes he didn't help him or Flick. But to dock him a whole rating for that is, I think, very harsh. I think Flick this season was definitely, especially with the expectation, like Faysal mentioned at the beginning, was a 10 out of 10.
Of literally, here you go, I'm going to lose this game. So that is maybe the only thing I'm going to criticize. I feel like certain games his in-game management lacked. But other than that, he's been consistent. And now from a player standpoint, I think every single person this season showcased top levels, showcased the highest possible level throughout this whole season. Each person performed at their best and at their peak throughout different parts of the season, whether that was beginning of the season, mid-season, or towards the end of the season. Like everyone performed at their best, whether that was the right back, left back, 2 centre backs, the goalkeeper, the 2 DMs, the left mid, the right mid, the striker, the 10, the players off the bench. Everyone had their moments, whether that was Pablo Torre, even for about 2 weeks had his moments when he scored against Girona, or Lamine, or Rafinha, or Ferran Torres, Lewa, Dani Olmo, Fermin, Pedri, Casado, Bernal, Frankie, Gavi, Koundé, Jaron Martin. Everyone had their moments, and in terms of the consistency, everyone played to the right level when Barcelona needed them. But I'm not going to give him a 10. I'm not going to specifically mention each player and talk about in depth because I'm planning to do a player ranking the same way I'm going to do it to Real Madrid is I'm going to do it to Barcelona. I'm going to rank each Barcelona player this season from 25 to 1 and the ranking which I felt like at best to worst. So I'm not going to speak about each person specifically, but what I will be talking about is a collective. And I felt like everyone played collectively pretty well. Maybe the only thing you can argue, and the only thing I'm not going to give it a 10, is when they needed them in Champions League crunch time, they never stepped up. The likes of Rafinha, the likes of Lewa.
That for me is so harsh. You're judging it based on a last second goal from Acerbi. I mean, we were 2-0 down that second leg until we came back 3-2. We all thought Rafinha scored the dagger. I think here's where you see the bit of the Madrid agenda. He doesn't want to give. I don't think the players were 10 out of 10. I'll give you my rating once he gives his. But to say that, oh, that Champions League moment was the reason why I can't give them a 10, I think is a bit of a false perspective. Look at how the game went. Yes, individual mistakes did not help us in that game, but to see that we were 2-0 down, bringing it by the 3-2, second half comeback at the San Siro against the best defensive side in the Champions League. Up at that point, of course, they lost Champions League final 5-0, so that took that record away from them. But up until that point, and then they only conceded 4 goals, 3 of them being to the Barcelona. So, bit of Barca hate there coming out.
Olmo, at the game against Inter Milan, the second leg where Barcelona lost, the only person you felt like could do something was Lamine Yamal. Lamine Yamal felt like...
That's true, Lamine was on demon time, but look at Gerard Martin getting 2 assists, Eric Garcia coming up with a big goal, Dani Olmo scoring, Rafinha scoring. These are players that are turning up in that big goal. Maybe that big goal was for 4 or 5 minutes as compared to Lamine Yamal, who performed at a world-class level for, 180 minutes. But in those moments where you need a clutch player, you need a big moment, they were there. Rafinha missing the first shot, then hitting the rebound going in. Eric Garcia scoring his second goal. Gerard Martin, who everyone was screaming, begging to get hooked at halftime, got 2 assists in the space of 7 minutes. So a little bit of bias there, I feel like.
The only person to unlock something. Yes, I know Rafinha scored. Yes, I know Dani Olmo scored. But it never felt like they played well. It was always Lamine Yamal, and he was the only person that can change something. So maybe
that's a fair point.
Towards the end of the season, certain players, their performances went down. When Balde went down, Rafinha's level went down. Dani Olmo was inconsistent. Fermin Lopez was
because of his injuries.
Frankie was very good in the second half. First half, Pedri consistent.
I mean, first half he was fucking injured. What are we doing here?
Lamine consistent. Lewa, second half between Jan and April, he was poor. Kunde consistent.
I mean, he's scoring goals.
Christensen, Kobasi, Arujo, very, very disappointing in certain times. So as a collective, I'm going to give the players an 8 out of 10.
Same with the manager. I think he's a rating down. I gave it a 9 out of 10. Despite the fact that you can say last 2 months it was just Lamine and Pedri the most 2 consistent. I would even argue that Pedri had a poor month of March, especially in that Copa del Rey final. I know people said he was world class. I think the goal was fantastic, and him being in the moment was definitely a big thing. But I don't think he played well in that final overall. I think he's being a bit harsh to talk about Christensen, where he's been injured the whole season. He's only been back for the last month. Arujo as well, who's in and out of the team. I can understand his point though that the level did jump off from, again, we were like all consistent up until March. Then past March it was just Lamine and inshallah. So I can definitely see his point there. But I think that point and the second leg Inter, I think he's being a bit too harsh. I think a 9 out of 10 here would have been definitely suitable for a team that was probably the best team in the world from August until the Champions League final. So that's how I would put it anyways.
And now performances and the displays that Barcelona put. And let's be real and let's be honest, they played amongst one of the best teams throughout this whole season. They've been consistent from August to May, bro. The expectation heading into the season, Barca was never going to win the La Liga, especially after Real Madrid had just signed Kylian Mbappe and they won La Liga last season. So Madrid was always going to be the favourites in La Liga, especially. This was our best chance of retaining for the first time since 2007 and 2008. The Champions League, they were never the heavy favourites. Look at the track record over the past 4 years. Barely reached the knockout stage only last season. Bro, they got knocked out in the group stages twice in 2 years, fam. The expectation of the Champions League was never to compete. It was always, you know what, maybe a quarterfinals or a semi-finals if they're lucky. So the way the season started for Barcelona, bro, they played entertaining football. Bro, look at the first 3 months. They were scoring 5 goals, 6 goals, 7 goals. They beat Bayern by 4. Real Madrid by 4. They scored 7 in the league, 6 in the Champions League. Bro, they were literally putting 5, 6, 7 goals under every single team. Then the drop-off hit between November and December. But then in from Jan and onwards, they went on to an unbeaten form. No one could stop them, whether that was defensively or even going forward, bro. That man was scoring goals for fun. Bro, I was doing a watch along of every single Barcelona game. First, it was a hate watch. I wanted them to lose at all costs. Bro, when Madrid was playing so badly and when Barcelona were playing so well, bro, at one point the hate watch became, let me just enjoy watching football, because I'm not enjoying watching Real Madrid every single week. I respect
the honesty.
Bro, I get more fun watching Santos Laguna, fam. You know what I mean? Santos Laguna and Liga Mexicano. But fam, it turned into an actually, you know what, let me just enjoy watching Barcelona. Let me enjoy Pedri. Let me enjoy watching Lamine Yamal. And that's how it turned out to be. Because I used to get entertained, whether from those kind of players or from the system of Hansi Flick. But then, of course, the expectation changed. First part of the season, it was never to win a treble. It was never to win a double. But then come Feb time and come March time, the treble hopes was very high. Everyone's talking about trebles. From February to March to April, and in May, it went to another level. When they won the Copa del Rey, when they were leading in La Liga by 7 points, and then, of course, winning the Champions League in quarterfinals. Then the semi-finals, no Real Madrid. So it was always going to be Inter, Arsenal, and Paris Saint-Germain. And let's be real, they were the heavy favourites across those 4 teams. Everyone had them going through against Inter Milan.
I wouldn't say we were the heavy favorites. I think we were the favorites, of course, to go through the Inter, like you mentioned. The final against PSG would have been a 50-50. In my opinion, I think even when I was talking with PSG and about it too, and everyone kind of agreed on that in the comments as well. We were one of the favorites. I wouldn't say we were the super heavy ones. Definitely against Inter, though, not taking that away from
First leg, bro, insane. The comeback, it was 3-2, then 3-3. The second leg, they were literally a minute away from reaching the Champions League final if it wasn't for Araujo not defending well and a Serbi coming in. I've seen a lot of people rank this Barcelona season. Barcelona failed because they didn't win the Champions League. Let's be real, yeah. At the start of the season, that wasn't the expectation. No one expected Barcelona to even compete for the Champions League.
I'll tell you what the expectation was at the beginning of the season, was to win a trophy, any trophy, just win at least one, and at least get to the quarterfinals of the Champions League. That was it. Those were the goals, August 2024. And look what happened.
So the fact that they got to that stage is a credit to its own, yeah. La Liga, they performed better than anyone else. Copa del Rey, they were convincing throughout this whole campaign. The Champions League, let's be real, against Inter Milan, just moments. That game, it could have been 4-2 if Lamine Yamal had scored that. It hit the post. From 4-2, it went 3-3. Extra time, anyone's game. So I felt like the Champions League shouldn't be a knock on Barcelona and say Barcelona had a bad season. I would take that season over our season all day long.
I mean, obviously,
the Champions League is the pinnacle. You have to win the Champions League for you to have a good season. But as a collective,
that's not true.
Real, yeah? I'm going to give this Barcelona season from a rating from 0 to 10. I'm giving this Barcelona season an 8.5 out of 10. The way they played was entertaining.
I mean, again, like he mentioned, he did nothing there but glaze, but, you take away 1.5 ratings. I'm a bit confused. Maybe he'll mention why he took those ratings. Let me give him a chance.
The players, most of them were on it. The manager played them into the position to be successful, and they did it perfectly. Well, they won the league, they won the Copa del Rey, they won the Super Cup. They won a domestic treble, and they went to the semi-finals of the Champions League. So that, to me, is a good season. But guys, this is my...
So why is there a 1.5 taken off? I don't get it. Again, we had a near perfect season. We were, like you mentioned, 2 minutes away from a Champions League final. Then in the final, of course, 50-50 against PSG. That would have been an iconic generational final. You never know what would have happened. Again, for me, I'd probably even say it's a 10 out of 10 season. Again, like I mentioned, the expectation was win a trophy, just one, and quarterfinals of Champions League, and we exceeded that beyond expectation. And like you already mentioned, against a Super Galactico Real Madrid team that won a treble last season, the double Champions League, La Liga, then signed the best player in the world at the time to add to their team. Let's be honest here, it's a 10 out of 10. I'm surprised that he didn't give anything here a 10 out of 10, whether it be, I thought he was going to give at least Flick a 10 out of 10. He didn't get Flick, the players, or the performance this season a 10 out of 10. One of those definitely was a 10 out of 10, and for me, I'd give it on the performance. Players, I can understand his argument, that's why I said a 9. Manager as well, makes a bit of sense, but I still think Flick, I think Flick performances are definitely strong, high, upper echelon 9s, borderline 10s. So you can see the bias here a little bit. We'll see what he does in that ratings video, which I probably will react to, but that is the end of the reaction. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. If you did, of course, make sure you drop a like down below and subscribe to my channel as well if you haven't already. And make sure you go to the channel and check out my season review where I did, a full analysis of the season, the performances. I did every single player rating, gave some season awards as well. That's the season review video on the channel. Make sure you check that out. But overall, on Faysal's review, he did give us our flowers, but still, had some bias in there to prevent us giving us, super duper sexy score lines. But in the end, I think he was quite reasonable with his explanations. A bit of factual misinformation in some areas, but of course, as you know, he watched Barcelona a lot this season as proof of his channel. So give a good interpretation, but was a bit, I think, harsh on those ratings. But hope you guys enjoyed. Again, drop a like down below, subscribe as well if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time on the channel. Take care and Forza Barca.